epoxy meat cycle. So we have a couple of things to discuss. I'm not sure if you are all familiar with the Etherpad, but the Etherpad name is the same as this meatpad name. So I'll share it in the chat again, and then please join us in the Etherpad. We have a couple of discussions of features to go through, and yeah, and first, like there's one topic that I would like to bring up, which is the state of RCI. Yeah, so I believe I can get started with that, and then we can share some thoughts on what's going on. So basically, we have our CI. Sorry, we have
Yeah,
our
Carlos,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Sarvan and Sai will be joining in within half an hour actually. They just started from office to home, so they just informed me. There is some problem with my microphone, and congratulations, Gautam. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Girish.
Yeah, thanks for the info, Girish. Yeah, so I believe we can get started with the CI stuff, and then yeah, I think we can take a break after this first discussion. I think that's enough time for them to catch up in the next few topics. How does that sound? Right, hearing silence. Yeah, I think it's okay. All right. So as I've added a couple of notes here, we are seeing a couple of failures in our CI, and some of these jobs they didn't start like failing very like it wasn't so recent. For example, the Manila Tempest plugin container job is been failing for quite some time, and we are seeing other similar failures in other jobs as well. For example, sometimes the scenario generic scenario test would fail with this exact same message, or other jobs would fail with this exact same messages going showing up on the tests. I've looked at it briefly, but I couldn't find like an immediate reason for that. But I mean, the container driver is one that's very, very important for us to keep testing some features, because I mean, it's one of the drivers that we can test JDSS through, and it has, like testing for manage and manage, if I recall correctly, and other features. So it would be nice if we can, like get this this job green again. I honestly can take a look at this, but I won't be able to take a look at all of the other jobs here. So that's like we will need help for the next couple of jobs that I'm gonna mention here. So this is the first of the failures, and I believe this will help us to look to understand what's happening with the other jobs as well. So yeah, that's one. That's the Manila Tempest plugin container. The next one is Manila Tempest plugin generic. It's failing both on the master branch and on the stable branches. On the master branch, it is failing as a result of this change that we merged, the change that add test for allow to update share access rule. We've bumped the version, but a couple of tests apparently are not skipping based on the version of the test. So we should be looking for the specific API to be triggering these tests, and apparently we need to tweak the tests a bit. This is kind of like making the CI fail. And there is a change being proposed to address that. Yeah, thanks for the link, Gotham. I've added it like in a couple of topics after too, but there's a change being proposed. This failure is blocking the stable CI, and we are not being able to merge any of the stable any of the changes in the stable branches. There are a couple of other failures here for the multi-node NFS, CFFS NFS CFADM, and CFFS native CFADM. But generic, it failed in this occasion, but I've looked at it and apparently it's not because of the same reason. It's like the other message that I was just chatting about, that also happens to the container driver. So yeah, this I think if we figure out the other one about the share networks, then it should be all right. And we should be able to fix this in the generic driver job as well. But apparently, as you can see, like the dummy JHSS and no JHSS job are passing as a result of this change, and I think it will unblock the gate. So yes, we should merge this change so that we unblock the gate, because there is one or more change that are one or more changes that are waiting on the CI to be stable. And yeah, we should get them in. One of them is this one. No, it's like a generic driver change, and the author has been rechecking until they've realized that this is the cause of the issue. So yeah, that's one of the issues, but I believe we are kind of in a very good shape to fix this. And as soon as we have the votes on this change and everyone adding their thoughts, then this will be fixed, and we'll be able to merge the changes stable branch in the stable branches again. Any questions or thoughts about this change or the way that we are doing this testing and uh, or anything related? All right. Hearing silence says no. So the next job
So
is
I
yes,
have
sir.
one question. Like, if we run the Manila tests for the change that belongs to the master branch, why it runs for the test uh, from the stable branch?
Yes,
I
that is
mean,
a good question. Yes, so Tempest, Manila Tempest plugin is branchless, right? So it will pretty much use the micro version, the API micro version that we define for all of the branches. So, for example, if we bump the version of Manila Tempest plugin and we don't have any checks to see if the Manila API micro version matches, we will try to run tests, or we will run tests that are for the most recent branch in the stable branches as well, because we didn't skip the tests when the Manila version is different or is not the most recent. I don't know if it what I'm saying makes sense, but yeah, that's pretty much the reason for that. Like Tempest, Manila Tempest plugin is branchless, and we will like of course have tags and everything, but we should always ensure that the tests that are only testing something that's available in a specific micro version to be skipped if that micro version is not supported.
Yeah, this goes with the aspect that I mean, you'd want to be able to test backwards compatibility, right? That's the whole point of the API micro versions, and so that's one of the reasons why why we use the same Tempest code against older stable branches. Um, and the way those older stable branches are configured is that they're going to look at the maximum micro version that they have and in the API, and that's the config that's set in Tempest .conf against the jobs that are running in those branches. But if they start seeing tests that are not specifying any micro version, and they just go hit the API with the micro version they have, they're going to start seeing a 404, right? Because that particular micro version does not have the API that you're introducing, and that's the failures that this patch on lines 41 and 51 are trying to fix. So this might be a repeated problem. I mean, it might just be a thing of familiarity. So each time you start bumping the API micro version and you're introducing a new test in Manila Tempest plugin, this is something to take care of. Um, that anytime you're hitting a new API with Manila Tempest plugin, it should be using the new API micro version, and you should make sure that the API micro version is has the skip decorators or the skip instructions are properly coded into the test.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's thanks for the question. That's something like Tempest can be a bit confusing sometimes, but yeah, I think that's kind of like also got them helped with a clear picture of what's going on. And yeah, there are two other jobs that are also failing because of the same thing as the Manila Tempest plugin generic, which are the dummy JHSS and dummy no JHSS on the stable branches. But this change should also address the failures for those drivers and for those jobs in the stable branches. Uh, However, I believe it would be there should be some sort of like a similar fix for Manila Grenade because Manila Grenade is also failing kind of like the same reasons. There is one test failing here, and the test that is failing is the update access rule test, which is kind of like newly introduced. So that's another job that we need to take a look at and figure out how to fix. Yeah, so Vanilla Grenade, it will test upgrades, right, and check if something is broken.
Check.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but my screen sharing stopped and my
It
mic.
reloaded, and I can
Yeah.
hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Can.
Okay.
Awesome.
You were going over Manila Grenade.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So for Manila Grenade, yes, that's kind of like a similar issue that we also need to look at. I'm not sure if the fix is going to be exactly the same as the other one, but we need to take a look at that as well. So yeah, Kiran, could you please take a look at them?
Which one?
The Manila Grenade jobs. So Manila Grenade is testing upgrades, right, and ensuring that we have backwards compatibility, and if a change or if like when you're doing upgrades, nothing will break. The jobs are broken, but and apparently there is one test that's running here and one test that's failing, which is a test that is testing the update access rules. So we need to understand what's going on there, and
Maybe maybe it is the
yeah,
same issue of micro version 2.87. I think
yeah,
so.
it could be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if we merge that other change, then we will take a look at like if this job will continue to fail. Otherwise, we can yeah we'll need to take a look at the failures. But I think there's a chance that if the micro version is fixed and the tests are skipped properly, as
yeah,
the other
yeah,
changes is doing, then I think this we could like get past this issue.
yeah.
Cool. Any other questions or suggestions or something that you would like to bring up?
On the container and the generic driver jobs, I don't remember if we've logged any bugs in the past.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, honestly.
Okay, so it seems like, I mean, so those two jobs, if I remember right, we were using a different way to trigger Tempest, which was we're using pre-configured credentials. And it's not something that we've configured in the jobs. I mean, we've just set up a dev stack configuration option. and that it just decides to go ahead and use pre-configured credentials that are created before the tests are run. The test create so the dev stack itself at the end of it creates a test config which triggers this stuff that sets up a bunch of credentials. Um, and that might be the concern right now. It basically says, yeah, something to do with share network create to be performed, etc.
Yeah.
Um, so a similar thing with soft deletion. I think policy does not allow soft delete to be performed. Well, we know that policy allows it, but there seems to be some confusion in the user that gets created. And the user does not have, I mean, it has member permissions or some such thing. But no, actually, the user does not have the member role. It has just the reader role. And we're not sure why we get that user, because it's not that the test requests something with the reader role. And it might be because something in Tempest is badly broken with respect to pre-configured credentials. Maybe we are picking up the wrong credentials when running the tests. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's something we can fix directly with Manila Tempest plugin. I mean, one thing we could try is just go ahead and switch those jobs to not using pre-configured credentials, and I can just put up a patch to test that. I don't know what else will break, but that would just make it like look like any other job that we are running.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The only downside is if it works, I would honestly not be sure where to fix this kind of thing. We can report it against Tempest, but pre-configured credentials are pretty important to us because a lot of DHSS true drivers they don't really behave very well with dynamic credentials. I mean, like let's say you're testing Dell EMC drivers or NetApp DHS is true with CIFS or something like that. This isn't. This is some place where you would want to control the the credentials that are the tests are using basically. And since this was one way for us to test it, we've kind of put it up in a couple of jobs upstream.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. Um, I believe, yeah, switching to the dynamic credentials would be nice, but yes, there is I understand the concern with JSS true drivers. And I think for the generic driver is a bit more complicated because like it means that we will create more VMs in a VM that already is limited in resources um, in the in the DevStack VM. I mean, so yeah, that's kind of a hard thing.
Let's give it a shot. Let's see.
Awesome, thank you. Good catch. All right, so that covers the failures on the CI. Now there is one job that I've realized it's not running for all of the branches. And I've realized that because I was actually looking forward to see the results in a change that I'm backporting. So when I looked at this change, so for example, for the 2024.1 branch, I've realized that the multi-node job is not running for SFFS. And I think at some point we might have done something with the job config or changed the branch configuration that these tests are not running on this driver. And I think for this change specifically, what I was looking forward to was because this change actually touches this FFS driver, and like we are fixing something related to provisioning in this FFS driver and ensuring that when we have multiple backends configured, we are actually evenly distributing the workload between the backends. So with native SFADM job, it passes, but I would like to see the results for the multi-node as well. And I was chatting to Ashley yesterday, and she mentioned that it apparently started to fail or not show up the results between November 26th and December 4th. I've looked at the changes that merged in this meantime, and apparently there isn't something relevant to this. So I can help taking a look at that too, and chat with Ashley, see what's going on with the failures or why the job's not running. But I believe there might be something related to the branch configuration, or like trying to set which branches this job should run and which branches it shouldn't. But I mean, it's also it's very important, specifically like for the driver changes that we are landing on the SFFS driver when we backport them. So yeah, are there any questions, suggestions, or something else you would like to bring up related to the state of the CI or any of the CI jobs that are failing?
On the multi-node stuff, what about the other jobs? Are they all running, or do you think other jobs are missing as well? And the reason I ask that is because I think we've clubbed the multi-node job and alongside a lot of other jobs into a project template, and we're running that template against whatever we want, right? Including Manila Tempest plugin. I mean,
Yes.
this one.
So apparently, like most of the jobs are running here. And I mean, I would expect that this native Cephid also was not like voting on the branch. Yeah, I don't exactly remember what we have tied with, but
And you think it's 24.1 only and not 24.2?
24.2 is running
Okay.
at the moment, but 23.2 is not running as well.
Actually,
I
24.2 does not have a multi-node job either.
Oh, really? I thought I've seen that. Sorry,
I
so
mean,
my
I
bad.
just
So
looked at a
24.2.
random change on 24.2 and I don't see multi-node specifically.
Yeah, 23.2 also doesn't have any, doesn't have the multi-node job.
I see.
But
So
there are a couple more jobs actually. Um,
interesting. So this seems to be specifically with that job and not the template then.
yes.
There's a couple of ways to debug this. You can go to Zool directly and add the branch, modifiers, and it kind of has already synthesized what jobs are supposed to be running. So you have a job set for any particular branch, and you can see the rules that are being applied to decide why a job is running or not. I think it's more about why a job is running than than why the job is not running.
Yeah.
That might be a good hint. If not, I mean, it might even be something glaring right in the job manifest for the multi-node job.
Yeah. So thanks. Yeah, I can take a look on that. But yeah, there's like a difference in the jobs that are running for 24.1 and for 23.2. So more jobs running on 23.2. Yeah, so definitely there's something wrong. Take a look at it. Thanks. All right. Is there something else you'd like to add to this discussion? All right. So I think that concludes the state of the CI discussion. Next up, we would have share encryption updates. Would you like to take a quick break, or can we just go straight to the next discussion? How what would work better for you? Right. Let's take a 5 minute break. You can go grab coffee or a stretch or something, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right. Um, let's get back to the discussions. Next up, we have the sharing encryption spec updates. These updates they were added to they were previously added to the review focus etherpad, but I've moved them to another etherpad. Yeah. So Kiran, would you like to share some context on these changes and talk about what are the plans now for share encryption? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you, Carlos. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, like Meatpad froze for a couple of minutes. Um, Kira, are you around? It's a ping.
Might not be back from the break yet, but
Yeah.
is there a way to set context for the rest of us? This seems to be the aspect. I mean, the update seems to be isolated to DHS as true, right? And it should be a way to override the shares encryption key with a server encryption key, from what I understand on the spec update.
No, basically previously we had considered
Or the,
only two use cases. One is to have some share type and encryption metadata associated with that share type. So any share that is being created from that share type will be encrypted share, and in that case, user will not be having his own key. Instead, Manila will use the custodian APIs to talk with the Barbican and create the key on behalf of user. Then it does some way of authenticating that key and making sure that this key is also accessible to the background, not the background, the backend drivers. And then basically it will pass to the backend driver. The second use case that we had is that user will use their own encryption key, which is per volume or per share. In that case, they should use the share type, which does not have the encryption metadata. So if you you can have either a share type which is standalone without any encryption metadata, so that you can use your own key in the share create API and then pass that to the backend driver, or you can have the encryption metadata associated with the share type. So whenever you create the share from that share type, the Manila will take care of getting the key for you and passing that to the backend driver. And then we had a discussion with the NetApp, and based on that, there is a third use case that we have is basically the same as that of the first one, that bringing your own key, but instead of per volume, it's a per share server. So that's the difference for which I have updated the spec and also updated uh, the pull request. Uh, so the case in which you are using a share type with the encryption metadata is where Manila will create the key for end user. But then having this key at this point in Manila API layer and then passing that key to the backend driver, the flow will be the same for all three use cases. So what we have in uh, addition to the previous spec, uh, as well as the additional implementation, is basically once we have the key created in the Barbican, the key has to be created from the end user context, or basically from the same end user who is creating the share. So he or she can pass that encryption key reference, which is nothing but the Barbican secret reference in the share create API. So once that comes into the Manila API layer, first what thing Manila will do is basically it will ask for the ACL to the Barbican user, which is defined in the manila.conf, so that this user will also get a read access uh, to this key or to this secret ref or encryption key ref, whatever we call. And then Manila will also create an application credentials for this Barbican user. This application credential is restricted to perform only the get secret operation for the Barbican user in the current project ID. And basically the project ID will be the current project, uh, and the role is basically the service. And then we pass these application credentials to the backend user. So backend driver. So the backend driver can use this application credential to talk with Barbican again and fetch the actual encryption key or the payload of the secret from the encryption key ref that either end user has provided or Manila has created on behalf of end user. This is the workflow in nutshell.
Hey, Kiran, I think there are a few words here that are quite confusing. One is, I mean, these are probably overlapping with some other OpenStack concepts. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about that because I don't understand what a Barbican ACL for a user is. What does that mean?
This is application. So basically, this is what access rights that Barbican secret that you have. So for by default, Barbican secret, whichever end user creates that secret can is only having access to that secret. So in this case, the key can be created by the end user or the key can be created by the Manila on behalf of end user. Uh, in either case, this key again need to be fetched by the backend drivers. So backend drivers should have access to this Barbican secret. And for this purpose, we are creating a Barbican user, or we are defining the Barbican user in the manila.conf. And this user, for this user, we will be uh, creating this ACL, so that using the, once the Barbican will grant ACL for this Barbican user uh, for the secret, the backend drivers will be able to fetch the secret payload or the encryption key.
So this is an OpenStack user.
Yeah, this is an OpenStack user. This user has to be created as a part of installation.
I see. And this user account will have permissions to view the secrets of all of the users that are associated with this workflow, right? Like technically, you can have tenant A.
Yeah, so this user is what we define, for our purpose, right? And this user, so whenever we are creating, uh, so once like whenever the end user is creating a Barbican secret, and then the same end user is creating a share with that Barbican secret reference, or in this case for API we call encryption key reference. Then from the context of this end user, we are asking Barbican to grant ACL for our Barbican user, which is defined in Manila.conf. So yes, as long as this ACL is being granted, this Barbican user will have access, read access to the secret.
And how is it that the end users' credentials are being handed? Not end users. I meant the this particular configured Barbican user that's there in Manila.conf. How is that handled in the in let's say the NetApp storage?
See, in the NetApp, for the NetApp at line number 35, we are passing the application credentials. And these application credentials are created for this Barbican user. That means any application using this application credential will be running on behalf of Barbican user. Because with the application credentials, any third party application will first fetch the token from the keystone. So that token entirely associated with for which user ID this application credential is being made for which project ID this application credential is made for, then which operation it is allowed to do, which roles it has, and all these things.
Sure. And this is only required at the time of the share creation, or do you think it's
Yeah,
the
so
drivers will need it
application
later?
credentials we are creating per share server, because at the end application credentials are associated with the user ID and project ID. So as long as once you are creating your first share, which also does the creation of first share server, sorry, the creation of the share server, we end up creating the application credentials, and for all shares which are coming on the same share server, we just fetch the application credentials from the keystone and pass to the NetApp or any backend driver for that purpose. Or the backend driver can themselves store this application credentials if they want at their end. But as a way of passing the necessary information, Manila will pass two things from the application credentials. First one is application credential ID. The second one is application credential secret. And the third one is encryption key reference. So with this all three information, whichever backend user will be doing encryption will talk with the Barbican. First it gets the token with the help of application credentials. Then it using the same token, it talks with the Barbican to fetch the actual encryption key or Barbican secret, and then it does the job of encryption. The alternative to passing application credential is to pass the details of the Barbican user like user ID and password, so that NetApp driver can talk with a Barbican on behalf of this user. But for the security purpose, and also we should not end up creating multiple users for each SVM and etc. This is the best way, I believe.
Yeah. So my concern is that, I mean, technically, if this is, I mean, the NetApp storage will have to know where Barbican is. Um,
Yeah, this
and
is something.
mhm. Go ahead.
Basically, this is the part of deployment, right? So whoever is deploying Manila and deploying NetApp as a backend know where the Barbican is deployed and basically know the uh, Barbican URL or something.
Yeah. So if they do know the Barbican URL, and you're saying that there's going to be one user that'll be configured in Manila.conf across all of the shares that use this kind of encryption, it feels like that's something that you could also configure directly on NetApp. You know, always let NetApp know what the user is, and you don't really need Manila to tell NetApp that, because this design seems like you just have one user all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
That's why we use application credentials. So
Yeah.
it's exactly the use case that we don't want one user that has the permissions to read all the secrets of all the projects. So what we
Mm.
hand out to NetApp is only the minimal permissions, like this application credential can only list the secrets within the scope of one project.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm kind of trying. I mean, that's kind of the question I was going for. Like initially, I was thinking that you'd want to scope this within a particular project at least. But what I'm hearing is that this user will have to be pre-created at deployment time and will be configured in Manila.conf. So how does that work across projects? Right, we're not creating these users on the fly. We don't even know these projects beforehand. We just see them when they show up, creating a share.
I mean, how this user gets access to the project.
Um, Not really. I mean, because Manila has admin rights, we can go do all of those changes with Keystone. But I meant, I mean, this user seems like a replacement to the Manila user, except it can only do all the Barbican things. And we're trying to scope out encryption secrets that pertain to different tenants, and we're giving access to those encryption secrets to this one user each time. And we're passing the user's application credentials to NetApp or to any other storage, but we're doing that with each share create operation. But still, I see only one user being used all over um, across projects. So let's say NetApp holds on to these application credentials. It now has a way to read, application credentials, the encryption secrets for any tenant that it wants, um, as long as they're Manila shares and they have been granted access via Manila, right?
Well, only yeah. You could go to the credentials that are tied to one SVM and use them from to to read this project's keys, but the application credentials, they are tied to one project, so you can only read those. I mean, the cluster admin of ONTAP can go and collect all the application credentials that are stored on the system and could use all of them and fetch all the keys that are stored on the concrete system. Yeah, that's true, but it's a lot harder to achieve than if you have just a single user and password.
It is harder, but it's the same design, I think, at the end of the day. Um,
You
so
won't get
mhm.
access to projects that are on a different cluster,
On a different ONTAP cluster or on a different OpenStack cluster?
on a different ONTAP cluster.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know in this spec. I don't see an example of how this stuff is
e-
configured, and I don't think
e-
I
I
saw
will add
application
how.
credentials as well.
So if you look at ONTAP, what we store, right? And when
Mhm.
user is creating a share, and ONTAP gets the admin credential, that is number one, and that is stored in ONTAP. I mean, we'll use it. Second one is that secret key reference, and also the Barbican endpoint. Only these three informations would be there. And so we got the Barbican endpoint, and we got the secret key reference, and then we got admin credentials. All will be passed as kind of arguments to ONTAP whenever share is created. So using the admin credentials and using the secret key reference, using the Barbican endpoint, we query OpenStack, and then we get the token, then we get the actual secret key from OpenStack, and that is very important key for us to do encryption for every volume created in ONTAP. So only these three things would be there, and I can capture that the REST API. What I mean, like whatever REST API we are supporting in ONTAP to get all these things, and like example, share is getting created right in ONTAP. So all the values will be there, and then the driver will get all the values. Then accordingly, I will invoke one REST API in ONTAP. So that REST API, whatever I'm going to invoke, right? We are going to invoke that information. I can capture that, and maybe if you go through that, then you'll know that okay, ONTAP, what are the values we are using,
Yeah,
and
that'll be
how are we
helpful.
fetching. Yeah, that command I got it, and last week, and maybe I'll update it, and even either ONTAP CLI or ONTAP API, I will update that here. But using that admin credentials, right? Right now we 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 know only the secret key reference of only one that is passed. So like maybe we don't know that secret key references, but I don't know whether with the admin credential we'll be able to list all the
Yeah,
secret key
I think you
references
should be
present
able
in
to.
OpenStack.
Yeah, you should be able to
That
go
that
hit
that
the Barbican API
yeah.
and ask for all of the.
That's what I and Kiran we thought maybe I mean Maurice, right? Maybe we have to play around with that because of some artback and all Kiran was discussing. Yeah, even yeah, maybe you're telling like everything is possible, but yeah, we have to try that out. Yeah, how it is working.
I think the application credentials should not be allowed to list all the Barbican
Uh,
all the Barbican secrets. Yeah, it should
And
only
that
be
yeah,
would be the
allowed
way we
to
would set
get
up the
a
RBAC.
single one.
uh, uh,
I'm looking at the secrets API. So get v1 secrets, for instance, would have to be restricted somehow. And this is something
yeah.
that it's outside of Manila. So somebody should have done this in the policy for Barbican itself. Correct. That's how
No,
we
no,
would
that's
set.
the beauty of the application credentials. You can restrict what an application credential can do.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. You can add a role directly when you're creating the application credential, perhaps.
Uh, yes, that and also the path, the API path, it can be used for. You can restrict.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah,
So you
you're right.
can really tie it down to a single secret ID.
I see. Okay. And so at any given point of time, you're not getting the user's details. You're getting a mangled something, a credential, which just give me 1 second. I think the recording is going to end right now, so I'll quit it myself and restart it. There we go. Just a sec.